So, this is going to be a video mainly targeted towards the hobbyists that are just getting started. People who want to be able to draw well that doesn't necessarily want to draw as a full-time job. Now, when I look at YouTube art videos, I mostly see professional artists giving advice, and this makes sense. But I wanted to talk about my experience of learning how to draw as a hobbyist that never received any formal art education other than those, mandatory art classes in school, which I sucked at. Yeah, I was the only kid in B plus in C of A's, and that's pretty ridiculous now that I think about it. I think drawing is one of the hardest skills to pick up, mainly because of its enormous barrier to entry. And when you're just getting started, it can be a little intimidating since there is just so much concept to learn. Oh man, you need to learn perspective, structure, basic forms, shading, coloring, etc. And it just seems like too much work for a hobbyist. And when you're drawing, your output is most likely going to be terrible compared to millions of artists in social media, and it takes ages to be able to produce something that people may perceive as good or decent. And that can be very discouraging. I'm going to give you some advice as a fellow hobbyist artist that just went through the pains, and this is going to be mostly based off of a Reddit post that I made that was very well received, and I'm probably going to use most of the information that was written there, but I'll add some good comments that I received and also add some more information. Now, number 1, drawing is a journey. As a beginner, I struggled to get anything correct just like any beginner would. And I was an adult producing drawings that seemed like it was made by a 12-year-old. And I also had a very low attention span when drawing, and I only spent around 30 minutes a piece. And spoiler, you actually need to spend more time when you're drawing. And I also had a friend that started around the same time as I had, and he was making a faster progress than I did. And I thought to myself, well, the talent really did seem to exist. And I wasn't really that talented in drawing. But a couple of years later, I was drawing well, I got better, and our styles differed to the point where for a viewer, our skill levels were virtually indistinguishable. So, we each had something that we were good at. So I was good at one thing, he was good at the other thing. And our skill levels, weren't really clear cut. And no one was really, quote unquote, better. And I gained my own unique voice in art that was appealing to some people, and he had his own voice, and no one was really better at art than the other person. So don't get discouraged when you see someone that seems to make so much faster progress. I believe everyone is unique, and anyone can use their uniqueness to create their own beautiful art. Okay, number 2. Fundamentals are not as important as you think. Now, this might be a little controversial, but here's what I mean. So I'm not saying that you should not learn the fundamentals of art, but I'm saying that you should not make that your sole priority. Don't tell yourself that you are going to do what you really want to do after you mastered the fundamentals. Even for a professional artist, learning fundamentals are a lifelong journey. And I see beginners trying to learn the fundamentals first, but quit after a few days because, let's be honest, fundamentals are boring, if you're a beginner especially. And I think it's more important as a beginner to gain interest in drawing first. So the better approach might be to draw something that you really like. If you like anime, draw anime. And gain interest in art first. And now you'll have the motivation to improve and learn the fundamentals that you lack. You'll also be more productive because you are motivated. Number 3, sheer numbers of drawings matter. When you're just starting out, I recommend making 100 fast and bad art than creating one art that you spend a lot of time in. You'll want to use something like a ballpoint pen so you force yourself to keep moving on even with the mistakes that you've made. Eventually, you'll have enough art muscle to draw longer each time, your eyes will be more accurate, and your hands will be more accurate as well. And your skills will also be better. And one thing is, I see so many beginner artists only watching art tutorials and never actually sitting down to draw. You're not going to improve as much as people who spent that much time drawing, so sit down and draw. All right, number 4, what the heck are the fundamentals? So I think artists that started out at a young age don't really understand what it is like to be a person that's completely new learning how to draw. So when you ask those artists, what should I do first? You'll get comments like, learn the fundamentals. And as a beginner, you don't really know what those fundamentals are. So I suggest learning how to draw lines and ellipses first. So basically be comfortable making lines on a piece of paper. And then move on to basic forms and shapes, like cubes, spheres, and cylinders. And I highly recommend Alfonso Don's videos and learn how he breaks things up into simple shapes and how that affects his decision to shade. He was one of the best teachers that I found during my art journey. And while learning fundamentals, you also need to create art that you really like. Number 5, find what you really want to learn. So if you want to learn animation, you'll want to focus on topics such as gestures, movement. And if you want to learn how to make comics, you'll want to learn how to create a story and render them so that the readers understand what you are trying to say. And if you want to draw realism, you'll need to focus on learning accurate proportions and rendering realistically. So what I'm saying is you'll need to specialize in different things, and people who are good at one thing won't necessarily be good at another. So you'll need to pick one and stick with it. And especially because we are a hobbyist and we only have few hours per week. And you don't need to learn every single thing about human anatomy to create cartoons or comics or any illustrations. So pick what you want to focus on depending on what you want to do in the future. And personally, I wish I started creating comics more. Okay, number 6, find the style or aspects of art that you enjoy. So go to social media, any art social media, and collect artists that you really like and figure out why you like them. And just looking at great art will help you improve significantly. And study how this artist do things. If you want to draw anime, you should draw anime. And I have a friend who can draw very realistic portraits, but he's terrible at drawing stylized characters. So don't wait to study the fundamentals before you do things that you really like, because these are different skills. Also, your taste in art will change over time, and embrace it and incorporate them into your work. Number 7 is to use a reference. So don't be afraid to copy other artists when you're just starting out, and think of drawing as somewhat like a big collage. If you don't know how to draw something, use a photo, other drawings, and try to mix and match them to create something. So I wouldn't necessarily only use one artist as a reference, but I'll use various different pieces of art or photos or any other inspirations and mix them into a one piece of art. And especially, so for beginner artists, don't be afraid using a reference because it's not cheating. And reference will help you improve your drawings a lot. I can't believe I learned this very late into my art journey. And don't worry if you can't draw every single day. The life happens, and I'm a living proof that you don't need to do that to improve a lot. And when you're burnt out, drop it for a few months and come back. But remember to stick it to a long run, and you'll see improvements. Okay, thanks for listening, and I'll be delving into more details about each points in the future. So please subscribe if you're interested. Thank you, and goodbye.